Hello everyone, and welcome back to Black Dahlia. Last time we found our way into this chamber based on the 4 chambers of the Knights of the Trinity. We can't return to where we were before though, so we're kind of stuck in this chamber at this point. It's certainly ornate, with a bunch of pictures depicting something that has occurred, but if you look really closely, you'll notice certain things, including some certain crests that you might be familiar with. As well as some interesting imagery. Even at this point, I am not sure if these are inspired by certain pieces of art, or are actual pieces of art itself, and then just have transposed their own little bits and details in order to connect them to Black Dahlia's story. I want to say it's the second one, because some of these look really, really familiar. Like, I want to say that's like the meeting with Gabriel, or Azrael, one of the angels. Some of them are really easy to spot where the transposition has actually happened, so the Landolph's crest on the shield is definitely a dead giveaway there. But you might be wondering, okay, where do we end up after all this? Well, it's not really all that apparent. But let's just say that Santini's papers are definitely going to help you out a great deal when it comes to where we are at this part of the story. So, remember that we are actually underneath the monastery in Orylen at this point. So, that pretty much means that we're at the scene of the story that was told by Orylen about the, I guess, one of the first times that the actual ritual was going to be taking place. Now, the story mentions that there was the head of the monastery, Estefan of Orylen, who was trying to sabotage the master of the order, Landolph, or Yodolf, by creating a fake Dahlia. And by creating a fake Dahlia, he was able to switch it out with the original Black Dahlia, so that the ritual would not work. Now, Estefan was chosen as the 9th victim, and according to the ritual, the 9th victim serves a very specific role in the ritual, and that the performer of the ritual loses his life, and his soul gets transferred into the body of the 9th victim, pretty much just like conveying his power over to him. But because it was a fake Dahlia, his soul was trapped in the fake casing. But Yodolf's magical powers were so strong that Estefan's soul was dragged into the casing itself, and that they had a huge mystical battle inside of it, which was then resulting in this huge event that happened inside of it, which caused the casing to explode. Yodolf was destroyed. His soul was sent off to eternal torment, but Estefan, he was able to take his soul and split it into the shattered fragments of the casing. His body was buried underneath the Orylen Monastery, so I believe that it is not too far off to say that this is Estefan's actual grave, waiting for his soul to be returned. Because, you know, he needs that Valkyrie booty. As it says in... Actually, it actually says that he was really looking forward to some Valkyrie ass in heaven when his soul is returned. So, what does this mean in terms of where we sit and what our next steps are for continuing in this chamber? Because we are stuck here until we do what needs to be done. Well, it just so happens that our bag of runes that we've had for the longest time, turns out, is actually the casing of the fake Dahlia. Now, I'm still trying to figure out, I'm still trying to write out and try to make sense of where everything comes from and where certain things get to certain points, because how the fake Dahlia's casing made it all the way to Cleveland is beyond me. I still don't know. But let's just say it did, and now we have it, and now we get to figure out what is actually going on here. Okay, I guess it's time to start talking about that puzzle, huh? So, our next puzzle is reconstructing the fake Dahlia that Estefan created. This is to make sure that, since we're at Estefan's sarcophagus, we are able to return his soul. We have had this puzzle since day 1 of this game, and we still don't really have a really good sense of how to actually solve this puzzle. We have a lot of information, though, in order to go through, and because of that, this puzzle has a lot of dead ends that we can actually run into. As well as this puzzle also has a dead man walking scenario. If you don't have all the necessary information, this puzzle is going to be a lot harder to almost impossible to solve. I believe there are some pieces of information that you can miss. And that information includes some of the rune combinations that we have actually recorded in our notebook. One of them specifically is the runes at Louis's loft that were underneath the ashes by the fireplace. I think those are missable, and there might be 1 or 2 others, but off the top of my head I don't really recall. I think the best way to really go about doing this puzzle is to just go over my thought process of how to actually figure this out, because there's not a lot of information in any walkthroughs that really points you into this direction. I think there's only like 1. Let's start with Helen from the Museum of Natural History and the information that she was able to give us. It's kind of the same information that the Norse mythology book also gave us, which is that the runes have 2 meanings to them. One is that they all have a specific meaning attached to them, whether give it travel, protection, cruelty, hardship, anything like that. This is supported by the picture that is in the Raven Room. The second is that phonetically, all of the runes can be translated into English, which, based on that information, the first thing that you might be thinking of is that you're trying to create a message and then putting it into the Dahlia's casing. That is not true on both accounts. Putting it, even though you might have the correct answer for recreating the Dahlia in this puzzle, it doesn't actually mean anything in terms of the actual meanings that are attached to each rune. I couldn't even really figure out any sort of themes that really connect to any of them. The logic that there could be an English meaning to all of the runes is also not true. And the only reason why you would be able to confirm that this is not true is by creating your own cipher of what phonetic symbol that each rune connects to in English. Technically doing Helen's job, which is actually really easy because you have access to the parchment sheets and the translated sheets in order to help you out. Once you actually do that, and there's a copy of it on screen right now, you'll find out that all of the rune combinations on their own don't mean anything. Just meaning like really weird gibberish, pretty much. Like Yerv or Thoth, or like... I would want to say that there was actually information, maybe information based on the chanting that the Brotherhood did, but we don't have enough information on that to do anything with it, like Yisu Degas or anything like that. So those 2 ways are thrown out the window. Pretty much any information that we've learned about the runes at this point can be thrown out the window. And it's a lot of wasted time, to be honest. The main information that you need to know is, 1, in the puzzle itself and what is presented to you, as well as all of the rune combinations that you have in your notebook at this point. This also includes the rune combinations of the 4 knights that we just collected in the previous 2 videos. Based on this, what we're able to do is actually turn this 3D casing into a 2D spread. And what we have available to us is 3 rows of 8 slots that the runes can be put into. And it's really easy to figure out what runes go where because each row has a distinct shape to it, whether it's long, short, or a little bit oblong. In that way, we're able to spread out what runes we have available to us in each row. That is the first step that we're able to do here. The second step is figuring out where these runes are supposed to go. The hint here is that the rune combinations that we have collected, whether they be rows of 3, sets of 4, or the long set of 6 that we got out of the Wisdom of the Dragon book, they need to stay together as sets. So that means that they cannot be that a rune set cannot be disconnected from one another. Those 3 need to be, those 3 or those 4 or those 6 need to be connected in some way. So how is this supposed to be done in terms of the actual puzzle itself? Well, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, this is really easy. I should be able to just plug it in, a lot of them like vertically or horizontally. Some of them, that's the case, you're able to do that. It's nice and easy. But the thing is, you're dealing with only rows of 3, so the vertical, the logic of being able to put a lot of the runes vertically doesn't really work because you don't have enough space to commit to doing full vertical lines. What this means is that you're able to make a whole bunch of different shapes of interconnecting runes as well, whether not just horizontal and vertical lines, but also L shapes of different shapes and sizes, as well as stair patterns as well. Think of it more like Tetris pieces a little bit. So you're able to make the L-shaped Tetris pieces or the 2x2 Tetris pieces, kind of like that. So once you have that kind of logic sorted out, then you can go and figure out, okay, how am I able to plug these all in? By this point, you should be realizing that you have access to some runes and less access to other runes. You'll find that the runes that you have available in the puzzle itself do not match with the actual runes that you are trying to fit inside of the puzzle. For instance, you might have only access to one kind of rune in the actual puzzle where it's actually used 3 times in the rune combinations themselves. What this means is that certain runes go in certain places, because you're going to find that rune combinations are going to be overlapping over specific runes. So with that, we can actually get started and actually begin trying to piece together where certain runes go. It's going to take a little bit of thought in order to put this down on paper and then translate it into a 3D space. You're probably going to be taking notes as you're going through this, so you're going to be doing a 2-dimensional space. But you have to remember that you also are dealing with a 3-dimensional space overall, so when it comes to where certain runes are supposed to go, remember that when you actually, if you're writing these down, the ends of the rows don't necessarily mean you can't go past the end of the runes. It just means that your runes are going to be wrapping around to the opposite side. And with that, you should be able to figure this out with a little bit of trial and error and a little bit of thought about where certain runes need to go based on where they overlap.
Know then, O Thane of distant empires in the future age, that in your time has returned a great doom that bodes destruction to your world and your god as well as mine own. In centuries past, this holy place was devoted to the great grey god of Asgard, leader of the Aesir. On this spot was his altar dedicated, and here did those who served him return when they were discovered among the legions of Christ. In this place was the ritual of his return to be undertaken, and here was he most foully betrayed by usurpers among us. As did Irdolf in ages past, they undertook to assume his mantle and establish their suzerainty. I was the keeper of the sacred triad who endeavored to secret Thalia's chamber from their unclean hands, leaving them its empty shell. And it was I who was chosen as their witness and final sacrifice, whose rived soul was left among that encasement's shattered remains as theirs were sent to torment in Hades. Long have I watched and waited for the next witness, he who would complete my bitter quest. And now must I enlighten you, the unwitting enemy of my God, in order to forestall his usurpation. Shatter Thalia's prison to convey the grey god to those who would mock him. Keep it not for thine own purpose as I so unwisely did. Go now through the egress that I have long ago prepared. Preserve your soul and that of your nation. Let him sleep his icy sleep, forever safe and forever unawaking.
And so, we have solved what I considered the puzzle of Black Dahlia. We have returned Estefan's soul to his burial site, and now we can be in some ice cave with some buxom Valkyrie lady. He also gives us an ultimatum. Stop this ritual at all costs. Odin should not even be wakened, let alone have his power changed over to someone else. This ritual should not happen. Well, this is not going to really be much help because even though we solved this puzzle, we still don't have a way out. Luckily for us, apparently a moat was dug out around the sarcophagus, which is actually where our next puzzle is, where our escape route is anyways. So you're kind of wondering maybe why we had to do that puzzle, even though our escape route is somewhere completely different and we don't have to deal with the sarcophagus at all. Well, the reason for that is because in order for this puzzle to actually mean anything to us, we do need to make sure that the eyes are glowing on the sarcophagus, because there are binoculars in here, which lead to some weird kind of mystical stuff that is happening inside of the sarcophagus. What that is right now doesn't mean much. However, there are some panels on the outside of the sarcophagus that we are able to push, and we're able to rotate. One of the sides has a mirror, which makes this a mirror puzzle of all things. What we need to do here is we need to actually position 3 of these mirrors that are inside of the sarcophagus, and don't worry, there are only 3, to the specific place so that we are able to see through the binoculars into some sort of important area of some sorts in order to get a clue as to where we are supposed to go next. The easiest way to put where the mirrors are supposed to go is once you have the mirror on the outside of the sarcophagus, push it one more time in, and then the mirrors will be in the proper position. Once they are in the proper position with the binoculars, we're able to see a very specific part of the wall that is around here, based on where the mirrors are, with this interesting red centerpiece of one of the stone pieces. Which one of those are is a different story, because there's a lot of them, let's just say that. Which is why on this side of the sarcophagus, there is this little tiny mirror here. This mirror is pointing pretty much directly to the opposite side of the mirror, and with that we are able to get an examinable cursor on the side of the wall, which hopefully will lead us out of this chamber.
I made my way out of the crypts through the rubble of the ruined monastery. Before I knew it, I found myself in the vestry of the old church. I was getting close. Very close. Well, well, well. If it isn't Von Hess, fancy meeting you here.
Who?
What's the matter? You don't remember me? Well, I guess it has been a while since my days at the COI in Cleveland.
Ah, Mr. Pearson, if I'm not mistaken.
No sudden moves. It'd be a shame to have to use this.
Don't be a fool. You're hopelessly outnumbered. You won't get out of here alive.
I suppose I was dumb enough to come in here without any backup, do you?
You're bluffing.
Just go ahead and try me. Besides, your men aren't going to be doing any shooting as long as I've got you here.
It seems that you have me at a disadvantage, then.
You're damn right I do. So now you're going to answer a few questions for me.
As you wish.
It's interesting that they give you control after this point. But I think this is a good part for me to actually step off and just let everything kind of go. So, I will see you next time, everyone.
I want to know what really happened back in Cleveland in '41. How did you get to Dr. Eisenstadt?
But I didn't get to anyone. I was held for questioning. I was in your custody the entire time. When war broke out, I was sent back to my native land.
Then who killed Eisenstadt? Who took the Dahlia?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Don't play me for an idiot. You were in the Raven Room for a reason. Who killed Eisenstadt?
I swear I did not kill this man.
Then who did?
I do not know.
You're lying. Spill it.
Do what you must to me. There are fates worse than that.
What's going on out there?
They are sanctifying the ritual items.
What items?
You know, it would be better for you if you let me go. You are in an impossible situation here.
Yeah, I appreciate the concern. Now, I'm not going to ask you again. What ritual items?
The skull and the chalice.
They won't do you any good without the Dahlia.
But how did you know?
I've spent 5 years trying to figure out what that gem's secret was.
Then you know whoever controls the Dahlia can control the world.
What is it with you Krauts and ruling the world anyway?
You realize you have no hope here. Your situation is hopeless. You are surrounded by a force of men who was once the elite officers of the SS. I can assure you, however, that if you surrender, you'll be treated most considerately.
I know what your idea of consideration is. A bullet in the back of the head. I don't think so. You've been playing me for a sap ever since Cleveland. I've had about enough of it. Tell me who's behind all this.
I don't...
Tell me!
You are so like a boy, playing at cops and robbers. You have no idea when you are in over your head.
Maybe I should just hand you straight over to the Nuremberg tribunal. We'll see how you like to talk when you're staring at the gas chamber. Winslow, what the hell are you doing here?
Oh, I can't let you get all the glory, eh, sport?
But how did you...
Well, my informants must have received the same tip as you. We came to investigate the monastery. We saw you bumbling around back here. Looked like you might be in a spot of trouble, so I thought we should lend a hand. Who's your prisoner?
He's an acquaintance of ours from the old days. You remember the Nazi we arrested in Cleveland? His name's Von Hess.
Why, it is Von Hess. Mind if I have a word with him?
I guess not.
Where is it?
But there wasn't time. We couldn't get him all out. You must understand that the lock mechanisms were difficult. But don't worry, my men are on it. We'll have it back soon.
What's going on?
Not now, Jimbo. You left it behind.
The Americans were everywhere!
You bungling idiot! What the hell are you doing? Never could abide incompetence. Yo, I think it best if you drop that gun, sport. Nasty thing could go off at any second.
I don't get it. What's your game, Winslow?
Oh, you always were rather naive, Jimbo. I thought we just got lucky when he led us to the Brotherhood's messenger, but really, Dr. Eisenstadt, the torso killer himself. Oh, it's almost too much to ask. And he led me right to his back door where he wouldn't suspect a thing.
You were the one that killed Eisenstadt.
Ah, yes. Guilty as charged. Not as smart as you thought you were, eh, sport?
Smart enough to get to the Black Dahlia before you.
You have it.
Yeah, that's right, I have it. But you tell me, if this thing is so important, why'd you ever let it go?
It was that fool, Hitler. What a pathetic little man. We thought of him as a god, but what did he do when we handed him the means to control the world? He buried it underground.
Where the damn thing belongs.
Oh, Jimbo. You disappoint me. I thought you, of all people, would appreciate its grandeur.
There's nothing grand about it. That gem's brought this world nothing but evil.
Sacrifices have been made. But, isn't that the truth behind all of man's glorious endeavors? The pyramids were built on the backs of 1,000 slaves. The Colosseum on the blood of its gladiators. Empires on the lives of their soldiers.
All testaments to madmen. Pencil dicks like you.
What is it? Where's the Dahlia?
I sold it to a $5 whore. How is your mother these days, Dick?
Clever, Jimbo.
Oh!
Where is it?
Shove it up your ass.
Oh, well. I didn't expect you to cooperate. But you shan't deter me for long. I will find the Dahlia.
Not if I can help it.
Oh, Jimbo, really? You're in no position to stop me from doing anything.
As long as I have the
How about you
Dahlia.
don't, do you? You were quite good there for a moment, sport. I really did believe that he had it. But if you really did have it, you never would have told me, now would you?
So now what?
Well, we could spend a few hours torturing you just for fun. But I'm afraid I really don't have time for that now. The only thing to do is to kill you. It's a shame, really. Always did like you, Jimbo.
I can see you're all busted up.
Goodbye, old sport. Tata Ian.